Hello, everybody. It's me, Rich. I'm an immigration facilitator. And today I have a very interesting topic because it's about the new amount and why it's, what it's important for you to know this topic. And because maybe you are aware about what is the new amount because in different Facebook group, different people share with you that information, no? You right now know what is the amount in Mexican consulate. Maybe right now you know what is the immigration fine in Mexico about your resident card. Yes, but there are another kinds of people that maybe they didn't know what is those new amounts. And the most important here, and nobody tell you about it, or well, I didn't see that information in those Facebook groups. It's about these famous benefits. When you apply in certain categories, you have 50% where you don't need to pay the 100%, only you need to pay 50%. Yes, that benefits the Mexican government and in this immigration system give you, can you fall in certain categories but maybe you didn't know about it. You know the new price, the new amounts, and maybe, well, this is very normal. I understand that. Maybe it's complete expensive for certain kinds of foreigners, applicants, who nowadays they trying to or consider obtain a residency here in my country. But when they trying to count the cost to obtain, well, they show your financial solvency in the Mexican consulate. Yes, you need to pay, of course, and procedure fine in that Mexican consulate. Very short. But when you comes to Mexico, you notice that you need to pay apart your resident card and depend your circumstance because when you are renew, um, you need to pay and or you need to when you are in change condition because maybe you turn tourist to temporary residency or permanent residency, you need to pay certain fine. Yes, of course, in your resident card. But what is the point here that you notice that it's very expensive for you to pay that amount? Yes, maybe not, but I noticed certain comments in different Facebook groups for people who they ask the same. Is really I need to pay that amount per applicants, for example, because if I bring my family, we are 5 persons in my family. I need to pay that amount per people. Honestly, it's very expensive. Or another point, maybe you apply for this category in that category, but you don't need to show financial solvency, of course, because you will make money here in my country, or you will earn money here in my country, but you don't didn't consider pay that amount because well you pay you you trip to here in Mexico. You place when you need to sleep, okay? The plus is pay your resident card. And I understand this circumstance might be expensive for you. But well, I'm doing this streaming because it's important for me show you benefits that benefits that the Mexican government give at certain categories that maybe you didn't know about it. Okay, let's do it to show my screen. This streaming might be short. I hope so, honestly. And but well, let me share my screen. For example, that is the topic today, news amounts 2026. Those new amounts apply in both residency, yes, temporary or permanent residency. Those change affect those residencies. And you need to understand, or maybe you right now understood the difference between B temporary residency and permanent residency. The biggest benefits when you are though you are temporary or permanent residency. Okay, and the point here is those new amounts nowadays affect a small group of foreigners who they need to renew their resident card, their temporary residency. Well, it's important for you know what is those new amounts. Um, for example, what is the biggest update? Maybe you didn't know about it, or maybe you do. The last year, the Mexican government notified in the Gazette, official Gazette, that is, a platform who is official and important here in my country, that whatever happens about update new law and agreement or different chains in in fines, for example, in that famous official gazette is the only one that you are able to be aware for those change. Yes. In Spanish is Diario Oficial de la Federación. In English is Official Gazette. And but well, in July in 2025, the Mexican government notified at everyone who have this duty about immigration matters, to inform the next year that that is this moment, 2026, those foreigners who they trying to apply for any residency here in Mexico, they won't show that financial solvency with the minimum wage. They will apply for these famous UMAs. What do you mean, UMAs? Unit of measurements and update. But what is the difference? The difference is minimum wage, for example, in this year, increased 13%. Very high, honestly. Maybe in US dollar is very lower for you because you need to understand that different countries have what is the minimum wage. But here in Mexico, in Mexican pesos, is considerably high that increase. Unfortunately, I don't want to enter in politics now. But the point here is increase in 13%. UMass is completely different because the increase is 3%, 4%. It's not high, honestly. It's very lower. And UMass always Mexican people fall in this category to pay for UMass. For example, when you do respect the traffic light and any police stop you and they put you, I don't know, a fine, for example, una multa in Spanish, you need to pay according the humans. Yes, between another kinds of examples. Minimum wage always is applied in another circumstance. For example, when you commit a crime and you need to pay a minimum wage. Mexican government devised where is option to apply for minimum wage and apply for humans. Okay, in that update in July 2025, Mexican government informed that or announced this information. Any Mexican consulate need to apply whatever financial solvency in humans. For any immigration facilitator or immigration lawyer, of course, we see that opportunity for another kinds of foreigners who maybe for them were difficult to apply or obtain any uh, residency here in my country because for them maybe would have expensive apply for financial solvency. Yes, but nowadays maybe those people are able to apply for it because that amount is more lower. And you will notice that in my next page. But well, that is that announcement for the Mexican government. And you need to understand that. Well, this is the point. This is the announcement. UMAS in Mexican pesos is because that UMAS today in 2026, the rate is 116.31, very lower. But notice the minimum wage per day, because that month is per day. And in minimum wage is 3,150.04. Okay? But be aware the difference. Because, for example, in minimum wage, imagine that Mexican government didn't announce that update. Mexican government stay or keep the same system to apply for minimum wage in any visa, in any residency. And well, if you want to apply for financial solvency, you need to apply for minimum wage. Yes, forget if my Mexican government announced that new information, but right now you need to know. Yes, this is only an example. In minimum wage, right now in 2026, if that Mexican consulate apply for minimum wage for 6 months, you need to understand that financial solvency have two ways. The first is for 12 months for saving or for 6 months. You need to prove apart the 6 months, an option that you keep making money every month. Yes, according the amount that Mexican consulate request at you that you need to prove. Okay, let's do it an example. Imagine that you try to apply for temporary residency, of course. That is the sequences. Let me share. Let me check in my notes. Mm, mm, yeah, financial solvency. Okay, look at this. I'm gonna show you another screen, calculadora. Imagine that I showed you before a minimum wage for 6 months. This is an example, yes, because it's not the fact, because right now you apply for UMAS. But well, again, you don't understand my last explanation. Imagine if the Mexican government didn't update the financial solvency for Mexican consulate to apply for UMAS. If not, they keep apply for minimum wage. If in this year you apply for minimum wage, in 6 months for temporary residency, according the Mexican migration law, for 6 months you need to prove 300 days of the general minimum wage for apply for 6 months. Yes. For example, is 300, 300 days, days of the general minimum wage, or 300 days por the rate nowadays, the minimum wage in this year, 2026, is it 315 top 04. 31500 top 04. Okay? This is the amount, that amount in Mexico, in US dollar. In Mexican pesos, you need to prove 94,512, 94,000, 94,000 and 5,1200. Okay? It's an average. It's an example, okay? In minimum wage. In US dollar, you need to prove this amount. I showed you before. In minimum wage, for 300 days of the general minimum wage, the outcome is 94,512 Mexican pesos. Converted to US dollar is 5,000, well, 5,494. Okay, well, you are able to say better the number in your language, in English, because in my case it's complicated sometimes, and but well, it's more easy for me to say those amounts in Spanish, yes, because it's my mother language. But well, I show you my screen because you need to notice the difference. This is only for temporary residency in 6 months. But you need to prove that you keep that amount the of ahead months, yes? And you need to prove that. Now, imagine if you apply for saving. Saving, the amount is completely different. Yes. In minimum wage, shift. In minimum wage, the month is this one. 5,000 days of the general minimum wage for, I told you, what is the rate or what is the minimum wage in this year, 2026? Okay, this is for in Mexican pesos for saving. You need to prove 1,575,200 and 1 million. Yes, 1 million to up Mexican pesos that you need to prove here you want to apply for temporary residency by saving 12 a month. Okay? In US dollar is 91,000 and 567 US dollar. Yes, I'm gonna show you my screen, but you notice that in Mexican pesos is 1 million to up. You need to prove for saving. But converting that amount, Mexican pesos, in US dollar, and you need to understand that if Mexican government didn't announce the update for financial solvency by UMAS, only for minimum wage, you need to prove that. Yes, this is the average. In minimum wage, this is an example. Again. Mhm. Mhm. Even I take ahead or I take advantage to and show my screen to about partners. Now let me show you the main screen. Oh, where is it? Here. Now let's go to show my presentation. For example, guys, my presentation is this one. In this circumstance, that would have or would be the average about financial solvency if my Mexican government or my country, Mexican government, didn't announce this update for apply for financial solvency or for any residency visa or visa residency outside my country. Yes. But what happens? They announce it, then okay, right now the novelty is any foreigner, they won't apply for minimum wage if not for UMAS. Okay. I forget to mention that would partners would be 100 1,000, sorry, 1,000 every 3,200. Yes, the any partner, because for example, if you um, in the Mexican consulate trying to bring your family and you do that procedure in the Mexican consulate, any Mexican consulate requests, okay, this is your financial solvency, but if you want to bring your partners or your family, you need to understand that you need to prove solvency for them per person. Okay? Per person would be this amount that you see right now in this screen. Okay? But let's do it, show, understand it nowadays, the real moment, what happened in real moments in Mexican consulate, apply for UMAS. Okay? UMAS is very different. Why? Because it's more lower. Honestly, it's more lower. Let me show the is tool. For example, the minimum wage. Imagine that the same for temporary residency. This is only for temporary residency. Yes, it's not for permanent residency. It's only for temporary residency. And I use this one by for an example because you need to understand the context. How what is the difference between minimum wage and UMA? And you need to understand that why is very lower. For example, you need to prove for 6 months 680 100 days in UMAS for the rate nowadays 2026. Any UMA, the rate is 1,600 Mexican pesos, of course, that 31 cents is this one. Okay, this is converted in Mexican pesos. I'm gonna go with that in my presentation. Okay. Now, you need to see that in dollars, because it's your currency. In dollars, the converted, this is an average, okay? You need to ask at your Mexican consulate, maybe it's the same or maybe it's more lower, or maybe it's a little bit increased, yes, but not much than minimum wage, okay? Because any Mexican consulate need to apply for UMAS. Okay, in UMAS, for temporary residency by 6 months, you need to prove this. 4,000 and 638 US dollar. Okay. Again, this is an example, guys. This is an example because you need to understand that any Mexican consulate need to apply, of course, for UMAS, but any Mexican consulate have their own criteria in financial solvency. Whatever category, no, it might be difference in the north in your country, or in the south of your country, or in the center of your country, because any Mexican consulate works difference in financial solvency. Okay, I need to notify that I need to notify you this information because I don't want to confuse you and any Mexican consulate you need to prove this amount, okay, in US dollar. Please be aware in this circumstance. But in UMAS, that is the cost. Now, in saving, change the context because in saving, let me show you again la calculadora in Spanish. In saving, you need to prove one ounce, no, 11, sorry, ounce is in France. 11, 47, 417, 11,000 for 1,700 days en UMAS, ¿ok? En Spanish es 11,470 días en UMAS por the rate. The rate nowadays is this one. Know it. And you need to prove, of course, 1 million to up in Mexican pesos. But what is the context in US dollar? In US dollar, let me, I obtained information about the partners, of course, because you need to see the difference. But well, let's do to check to show my main presentation about this string. Okay, guys, this is the difference. The update. The nowadays, any Mexican consulate need to apply for UMAS, not for minimum wage. But you need to understand the difference because a lot of people or a lot of foreigners confuse that. Okay, any before this update, any foreigners have the thought about is expensive, prove financial solvency, and obtain residency in Mexico. Yes, but this update it's ambiguous opportunities for another foreigners who maybe is more achievable to apply for financial solvency nowadays. Yes, because look the difference. If the Mexican government didn't announce this update for any Mexican consulate and you need to apply for minimum wage, you need to prove 5,000 US dollar. Yes, but in UMAS, you need to prove 4,000 US dollar. Do you see the difference? Trying to say it in your own language because for me it's more easy to explain that in Spanish because honestly sometimes it's very difficult for me to say the numbers in English. But this is a difference. It's a biggest difference, honestly. Look at this in saving in 12 months. In minimum wage, you need to prove 91,000. But in UMAS, you need to prove 78,000. Do you look the difference? Honestly, I told you, when the Mexican government announced this information, this new form or way to apply for financial solvency outside my country for any Mexican consulate to apply for UMAS, for any immigration facilitator or immigration lawyer look it like an opportunity for another kinds of foreigners who, before they overthinking about apply for financial solvency or for obtaining residency here in my country, because in those days it was difficult prove those amount. But nowadays it's more easy. Maybe nowadays it's more achievable for them. If that is the point, guys. Imagine that for your partner in UMAS, you need to prove this one, 100, 1,500, okay? 100, okay? But well, this is the biggest difference. You need to notice that, but I told you again. Any Mexican consulate, of course, need to follow the financial solvency in UMAS, but any Mexican consulate have different ways to work. Yes, it's not the same the north than the center or the third in your country. Always, I notice that in US, in Canada, well, in France, it's only in Paris. It's not have another Mexican consulate. But I noticed that in US, the financial solvency is very different in Tucson, in LA, or Los Angeles, or Miami, or Washington, New York. It's very different, the financial solvency. Yes, but this is an example that you need to understand. Nowadays, the Mexican consulate apply for UMAS for those days who I show you, because this example is only for temporary residency. Okay, I don't want to be longer this string for permanent residency, because for permanent residency is another average, another amount. Of course, permanent residency, any Mexican consulate requests high econs, yes, but this is only for temporary residence. Now, this is only in Mexican consulate, but now I need to show you for INM inside my country. Inside my country, honestly, the rules change, because in the same time, in 2026, 2025, Mexican government announced this new information. The immigration fine changed in 100%, or increased 100% the price for the resident card in temporary residency and permanent residency. Okay? Immigration fine for your resident card in 2025 were those numbers that you notice nowadays in Mexican pesos. Okay? And trying to change that in your own currency. But look the lower, 5,517 o 5,570 Mexican pesos. But nowadays, the same. What do you mean one, two, three, four? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. You need to understand that when you apply for temporary residency here in my country, automatically you obtain 1 year or ahead, depends the circumstance. Yes, because for example, if you apply for financial solvency, automatically you obtain 1 year. Be 1 year temporary residency. And after you need to renew. When you apply for financial for family unit in Mexican consulates, for example, and that link is for someone who is resident too for 4 years, for example, or for 3 years, for example, you obtain that the same limit by your partner, okay? Or in the job, for example, in job offer, automatically you obtain 1 year, because it depends, of course, the Mexican company, but in all my clients, I know this, they obtain 1 year. Okay. But imagine that in 1 year, in temporary residency, nowadays in 2026, you need to pay 11,141 Mexican pesos, 4,100 Mexican pesos. Trying to change that in US dollar and notice the difference. Of course, increase a lot. And nowadays, I notice always, I heard this discussion about foreigners who they say, okay, nowadays it's very expensive obtain my residency card. Nowadays it's very expensive renew my residency card. Okay. I don't blame you, of course. Maybe might be expensive for you, maybe not, maybe it's not expensive, it's normal. But what is the point here? Look the difference in permanent residency. Because in permanent residency, you need to understand that you don't need to renew your resident card. Well, if you are adult, yes, because if you have a child, you need to understand that you need to renew each 3 years or 4 years, depending the age. Okay, but of course, what is that benefits that didn't know they didn't mention in any Facebook group about okay because a lot of people complain oh nowadays it's very expensive renew my temporary residency in 3 years because imagine that I bring my family we are 5 people and I need to renew my residency card for 3 years and I need to pay 21,143 Mexican pesos and 21,000 Mexican pesos convert it in US dollar maybe for yourself. Of course, it's expensive. Okay. But now you need to renew at your family again, and you need to pay per person. You are 5 person in your family. Of course, it's completely expensive, and I understand that. But nobody explained you this one. When you fall in certain categories, the Mexican government explained that, okay, I'm gonna give you a benefit and person. That's you don't need to pay the 100% the cost that you temporary residency because you fall in this category. What categories? In job offer, in family you need, and I forget another is for any invitation. For example, you are a student, you're in a school, Mexican school, provide you a letter, an official letter, and well, in that circumstance, you apply for it. Okay? Mm, let me show you my screen where I explain that because however, always I said that if you are able to read in Spanish, to speak in Spanish, to listen in Spanish, might be completely easy for you to understand, read any update about what happens in my country for immigration. Yes, this update happens in November, in November 7 in 2025. Okay. In this update, the Mexican government mentioned the new immigration fines, but in addition, below those immigration fines appear a paragraph. That paragraph mention that benefits for those people who fall in those categories. Those persons or those foreigners or residents who fall in those categories, they won't pay 100% the price about their residency. Yes, they only will pay the 50%. I'm gonna read you in Spanish. I hope you understand that. Las personas residentes The resident people who fall in the fraction 6 and 7, las personas residentes a que se refieren las fracciones 6 y 7 del presente artículo, del currency article, article 8 in this law, Ley Federal de Derechos. I don't know how to say that in English, but this is the law, Ley Federal de Derechos. And my recommendation for you is trying to find this law in this platform. I told you in the beginning, Mexico have platform, an official platform that any update for law, for code, for agreements, for change in fines, for example, you are able to notice that in this platform, in the official gazette or Diario Oficial de la Federación. You say here, Gobierno, Gobernación, Secretaría de Gobernación, Diario Oficial de la Federación. In this place, you are able to know, to be aware for any update. Okay, in this law, continue reading, explain, pagarán el 50% de las cuotas que le corresponden conforme a las citadas disposiciones. In this article, you will pay 50% the immigration fine according these options, okay? When you are new residency, automatically you obtain 1 year, okay? But if you fall, for example, continue reading, siempre que acrediten ante el Instituto Nacional de Migración, always give you proof on their ad in the INM, Instituto Nacional de Migración, National Migration Institute Mexican, que tu estancia en el país obedece that your stay here in my country obey this category, family unit, oferta de empleo por parte de una persona física o moral, job offer for someone who is a moral and company, or someone who is physical but have that faculty to hire foreigners, okay? Those persons, of course, need to be currently registered in INM, of course. Another point is por invitación de la organización o institución pública o privada establecida en territorio nacional, or for invitation for any organized or institute, public or private, who they are established in my territory, yes, in Mexico. Again, give you 3 options. Family unit, offer job, and for invitation for any organization or institute, public or private. Yes, for example, in this case, you are a student. Well, if you fall in those categories, you won't pay it. Complete your residency card. You will pay more lower. I'm going to show you that. For example, this is the immigration fines nowadays in 2026. And this is the flyer, of course. And now this is, I'm going to show you another. Yeah, this one. This is the immigration fines that is nowadays in 2026. I show you what is the cost nowadays. It's the same about my presentation. But look at this. What is the, I don't know, the when you fall in those categories that I mentioned you before, and only you will pay the 50%. Imagine that for temporary resident for temporary residency for 1 year, you won't pay 11,000. You will pay the same cost as in 2025. Okay, 5,000 Mexican pesos. Trying to convert that in your currency. Okay, but look at this; it's very lower. Imagine that you're trying to renew at your family. You won't pay. So you're trying to renew for 3 years, 21,000. You only will pay 10,000 per person. But honestly, you save many money in your wallet because you fall in that category. You have that benefit. The point here, and you need to be careful in this one, is when you renew your residency card, your immigration status here in my country as in temporary residency, you fall in those categories. Maybe you have that experience, then you need to download a document, and with that document, you need to go to the bank, any bank company here in my country that is very they allow you to pay that immigration fine, and it will you pay your residency card in that day. Yes, but you need to understand that nowadays INM, any INM office accept you pay in the office with card, okay? But what is the point here? If you are used to pay in bank because you remember that you pay in the bank, don't do it if you fall in those categories to pay for 50%. Why? Because if you pay complete the amount for 100% in the bank, unfortunately, because in this paragraph say that INM won't refund you that amount, ¿ok? En this paragraph say, en caso de solicitar el beneficio previsto en el artículo tal, o en that article who I explained with you, de Ley Federal de Derechos, por acreditar oferta de empleo, unidad familiar o carta de invitación, that you prove that you fall in this category for family you need, for offer job or invitation letter, deberás acudir a la oficina. You need to go to the office because the office need to check out if you fall in those categories. But if you fall in those categories, you are able to pay that. Now, explain something very important. Si realizó el pago del 100%, explain this part in the last one line in this paragraph, in where say aviso importante, and I don't know, important notice. Si realizó el pago del 100% en sucursal bancaria, if you pay in any bank, you won't request your refund, ¿ok? Si realizó el pago al 100% en sucursal bancaria, ya no podrá solicitar el beneficio respectivo. First, you won't have your refund, and second, you won't have that benefits. Why? Because you pay the 100%. However, try to be careful. If you are used to pay on the bank because maybe you did alone this process to obtain your residency card and you remember that you do it pay in the bank and after show the not bank in INM, but nowadays you are able to pay in any INM office. Yes, if you fall in those categories, avoid it. Try to pay in that office, those benefits the quote. Okay, the benefits the 50%. Very well, guys. Um, Let me return. But well, that is a difference. Nowadays, you know that key, and maybe you didn't know about it. You know it, of course. It's great trying to share that information. I don't know, a friend or someone who is temporary residency here in my country. He has some family, and he is worried to pay those expensive immigration fines today. Yes, in that circumstance he applied for this benefit, the 50%, because he applied for family unit. Okay, and the point here is, honestly, the most important here is trying to be aware, don't pay in any bank. The point here is the main person, the main residency who apply for financial solvency, of course, that person paying the complete amount, but their family pay the benefits. Yes, because the family apply for family unit. Okay, you need to be careful for that because, for example, if you apply directly for family unit and you will renew your residency card for family unit, automatically you apply the benefits. But those kinds of foreigners who they apply for financial solvency, of course, and they bring their family here and their family change the condition, immigration condition to temporary residency at the same limit as their main residency, resident, sorry. You need to understand that the main resident, he will pay the same amount, complete the same amount, the 100%, but their family pay the benefit, the 50%. Okay, so that's it. I need to okay, I need to mention it. I don't want to confuse you. If you apply for job offer, the point here is you are able to apply completely with your family. Because, for example, you renew with you that Mexican company, give you a stamp, you stay here in my country for 3 years. Of course, you are automatically job offered. Okay, you renew that in the INM office. They notice that you continue working in that Mexican company. Of course, you apply automatically for these benefits for the 50%. And if you bring your family, the same with them. Okay? That is the biggest difference. It's the same for the invitation letter. It's for that it's very important for you be update and be obtain the information in official websites. Okay? Or trying to go to the INM office close to you, trying to ask them, hey, I would like my residency card is close to renew, but I need to know if apply for these benefits. I know right now that I am able to apply it, but how functional that circumstance by me because I am the main residency. I know my family apply for that benefit, but what happened with me? Okay. All right. Well, the point here, any INM office have their own criteria. Well, guys, that's it in this. And yes, that's it in this streaming. Honestly, I hope this is very useful for you. This information is very useful for you. And well, if you have any doubt, any question, please share those questions in below in this streaming. And well, thank you so much. Can you stay here? Can you finish this streaming with me? Te agradezco muchísimo que hayas estado aquí. Don't forget to subscribe in this channel. If you know that someone is worried to renew the residency card because they don't decide to pay the complete immigration fines, maybe this information is very useful for them and try to share this streaming at those persons. Okay. And guys, if you want to support me, please try to subscribe in this channel. Te agradezco mucho, again, estar aquí y nos vemos en otra próxima. Hasta pronto.